All right then. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining. Um, really great to have you all here. And yeah, this event is actually part of a series of the Global Alumni Week. And as the name suggests, this is a globally organized week of activities, and the main objective really is to sort of bring people together, to encourage networking, to strengthen the exchange between students and alumni, and to really, get people talking to each other, at least virtually, since this is the only possible way at the moment. And today we actually have Laura Di Santolo here, and we are going to talk on about entrepreneurship and career path choices mainly. And actually, we want this to be quite interactive. So if you people have questions at some point, then just raise your hands, and we'll really try to make it interactive so that you can get the most out of this. Yeah, let me quickly sort of explain some ground rules and sort of some suggestions. Maybe one slide back, Melissa, because in order for us to, sorry, that was the wrong direction. In order for us to really also understand a bit who's actually joining for this call, we suggest that you quickly introduce yourself with these 4 pieces of information. So just if you would post in the chat your home school firstly, then your graduation year or your expected year of graduation, your location, so where you're currently based, and then why you're joining today. So what motivates you, what you're particularly interested in. That would give us some idea, and we can also sort of tailor our talk a bit in these directions. I'll quickly go ahead with an example. And yeah, that's actually sort of what we intend here. So over to the next slide, let me quickly establish some ground rules to make sure that everything runs smoothly today. I think by now that's sort of second nature to all of us, but still, if you're not actively talking, please make sure to keep yourself muted. And then we have 2 functions to make this really interactive. So you can either raise your hand and push the button to raise your hand, and then we'll get back to you and sort of hand over to you that you can address your question or place your comment. And you can also, of course, use the chat function. We're also going to keep an eye on that. So if you have any questions that you want to address there, or anything where you want us to be more specific, or sort of talk a bit more in more detail about that part of the discussion, then just let us know in the chat function. Yeah, with that being said, now that all of you are introducing yourself in the chat, that's great. I would say we switch over to Laura and actually introduce our guest for today. So Laura is a co-founder and managing director at Forward Incubator. That's an organization, a foundation that's offering entrepreneurship programs to people with a refugee background. And just recently, actually, Laura was named CEMS Junior Alumni of the Year 2020. So again, congratulations on that. And yeah, we're really excited to have you here and talk a bit about your experience, about the choices that you made up until now in your career. And yeah, I really look forward to this discussion with you, and hopefully there's going to be a lot of questions from the audience as well, so that we can really have an interactive talk. To maybe start off, Laura, I would like to ask you a few things also about your experience and your background as a CEMSie. I mean, you've been studying at RSM and WU, 2 great schools, definitely. And I would like to know, sort of, if you think back on your time as a student, what's the best memory that sort of still pops to your mind?
Yeah, thanks, Alvin, for the introduction, and also from my side, just a warm hello to everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. My favorite memory, I would definitely say, those are all not in the classroom, but more what happened around. So in Rotterdam, we had many running dinners.
Mhm.
And then at one point, they turned into just like running cocktails because people did not really want to cook. So that was really nice. And then, of course, in the Netherlands, we have King's Day on the 27th of April. So every year to rent a boat, that's really nice. And we also did that twice with the CEMS people together, which was also just super nice. And also to have all these international people experience that, that was really great. And we went once to Bocconi, so to Milano, to do the international negotiations, so like a Model United Nations. And
Mhm.
there the entire we went with a lot of people from RSM. We flew there, and it was really, really, really nice to be a week in Milano. Yeah, that was great.
Nice, yeah. I can personally relate to that because I actually also took part in this course, and also obviously CEMS running dinners and running cocktails is an all-time classic. So I'm sure that many people in here can relate to those events. Really cool, and that's definitely a great memory. Now more maybe on skills and sort of what you took away also now for your position as an entrepreneur. Sort of, is there like one, or what is the most important skill that you also gained during your time at RSM and WU that you benefit from now as an entrepreneur?
Mm, I think what I very honestly benefit most from at the moment is the network of SAMs. So, for example, when I graduated, I immediately started to work on Forward Incubator, but back then I didn't really have a big network. So I asked actually the SAMS program manager in Rotterdam if she could put me in touch with SAM students that actually became entrepreneurs. And then she did that. And those were the first 5 coaches we attracted at Forward Incubator to actually train the refugees we are working with. So that was really nice to see that from SAMS. I got this network. And also now, to do talks like this and just have this SAMS network, it's super beneficial, because once you start working, especially your own business, network is everything. Like if you know people in different positions and different industries, it makes your life way easier. It really goes into that direction of work smarter and not harder. So if you have a good network, that definitely helps a lot to be successful. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's an important point, definitely, and it's also good and encouraging for all of us because that's really something all of us share. I mean, like CEMS is the common ground for all of us, and then obviously it also comes down to how you really engage with your network and how
Yeah.
you try to foster that. But a really important point. Thanks for that.
Yeah. And for example, the people that went into like a corporate, or especially also consultancies, now we talk to each other and they become corporate partners of Forward Incubator, and we can do in-house training days where we go with all the newcomers to McKinsey or Simon Kucher, and then they get like an entire day of workshops, one-on-one trainings. And that's really nice, because that's all of the SAMS network.
Cool, yeah, especially with the business that or the industry that you're in, that's particularly important.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's sort of, maybe we said that it's really going to be an honest talk in the description of the event, so let's really live up to that expectation. I mean, that's good. The network is great. The events were great. Like, is there also anything that you don't miss at all, or sort of where you're happy that you're now rid of that?
Well, I definitely don't miss my master thesis. I was really struggling a lot with finishing that one. It was really tough, and I also could not submit upon deadline because I don't know, I tried to boil the ocean while I could not even boil the pot of water that I had on the stove. It's also 120 pages. It's a nightmare. So I was struggling with that. And the other thing that I don't miss about, I mean, I really love to study. Like I love to learn and the freedom and the flexibility. I loved all of that. But what I don't miss, I think there was a certain maybe stiffness in
Mm-hmm.
CEMS, that there's like one way to do things, and it was very, very corporate and very, I don't know, like the world is not black and white. And I think once you start working, you start to understand that the world is way more 50 shades of gray, but focusing on the color. Like, it's not, this is good, this is bad. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just, there are so many different things going on. And I think in CEMS, there was a bit of a consensus and group pressure to do things a certain way. So I'm very happy that once you graduate, everyone can go their own path. But I think some people, they get a bit too much into that crazy career progression, I don't know, fast track partner, all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you need to get that out of the system if you want to be happy. Because I think, especially with COVID, all of my friends that had crazy 5-year plans, like, going to go to McKinsey, I'm going to do 2 years, then I'm going to do my PhD in the US, and I'm going to do blah blah. McKinsey, COVID put an end to all of these plans, and it was really important that you are happy with internally with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you need to be a bit less externally driven. So I think that was actually something good about COVID, that you need to deal with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting points that you're touching upon now. I mean, with happiness generally, and like the choices that you make, and at some point you realize that you can't plan anything, or not everything at least. So yeah, definitely very, very interesting points. Thank you very much for that. But I would sort of hand over to you now, that you also really get the chance to quickly explain to the audience a bit what Forward Incubator does, what your business model is, and sort of the choices that you made that led you to the position where you're in now. So yeah, with that being said, handing over to you, and I'm sure that afterwards we're going to discuss some of the points that you mentioned now.
Yes, nice. Okay, so here is a slide of my life. So I tried to just put on one slide a bit like the timeline of my life a bit. So I'm originally from Luxembourg, born and raised. My dad is Italian. My mom has some family in France. So that's where I come from. And then I did my bachelor's at the Rotterdam School of Management in Rotterdam. And I never really thought I would stay in the Netherlands. I was always very focused on Paris and Berlin, but yeah, I love it here. I now live in Amsterdam, and I'm just super happy here in the Netherlands. So I graduated from my bachelor's, and I went on exchange to Taiwan, which was also a great experience. And this little picture with the 3 people that you see in the second box, that was my first day at university. Actually, it was the introduction weekend, and I was really lost because coming from Luxembourg, we have a very old school system. Like, we don't have computer training. Like, this is really true. When I started to study, I had never seen Excel before in my life, and I have an IT class at uni, and then I'm like, okay, what is this? I had no idea. So I was not really confident in the beginning when I started to study, and also my English was horrible, because in Luxembourg we learn French and German, and then I took Latin. Yeah, whatever. And then I only started to learn English when I was 16. So by the time I entered RSM, I was really lost. So the first 3 months were horrible. And I actually also applied for a job at the Bershka, because I thought, I'm never going to finish my exams, and this is really tough. So it was a tough time, but I came through it. And then the third box on the bottom with the logos from different companies, those are a couple of internships that I did. So I worked for Cargolux one summer, which I loved, which is like the biggest freight airline in Europe. And it was such an interesting internship, because they are also shipping, for example, for the Olympics in Brazil, they were shipping all the horses from Germany to Brazil, for example. And I could always see that. That was really great. I worked at the European Investment Bank, which is also a lot of fun. for the government in Luxembourg, Ministry of Economy. I actually got also an offer, which I was considering to take. That was while I did CEMS. And then on the top, you see CEMS. So I went on exchange to WU, which I loved. I was so happy there. I thought it generally was a bit more relaxed than RSM in terms of classes. The people were super nice. And the picture is actually my friend group that I also will go on holidays with again this summer, if everything works out with COVID. But yeah, the group of friends that I have from the WU is really like the group that I interact with the most still with, even though I was only there for 4 months. Here in Rotterdam, I have more like individual people that I hang out with, but at WU I got really like a clique, so that was nice. But yeah, when I did CEMS, I was really all over the place. So I had a German boyfriend who was really focused on entering one of the top 3 consultancies. And so, yeah, me too for a while, but I also did Société Générale. I did their 7-step intake for a job, and I went to Paris, and for Lufthansa, all different types of things. I was all over the place, and I really could not commit to anything. And then I started already to work at, back then we were called Refugees Forward. And that is something that I think that is something that really CEMS did to me. I mean, it's not a negative thing, but I did it, is that I did the interviews at McKinsey until I got an offer to just show that a bit to my environment, also my father, that I could do that, but I took the decision to do something different. So I also did that a bit for status, and also for in my friends groups to say, like, you know, I had an offer and I do what I do now because I believe in it, but it's not that I could have not done something different. So yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. That's my story. And then now I work at Forward Incubator for 3 years full time, and yeah, it has been a roller coaster ride. So for the incubator, like Alvin already said, we empower people with a refugee background to start their own business. We started with only in the Netherlands, but now we do it globally. So which is super exciting. Actually, because of COVID, we started to do everything online. So yeah, that's great. At the moment, we work with over 80 people that are internationally based. And yeah, it's just such, I mean, it's really challenging and tough work, but it's also very rewarding if you can actually help someone to start their own business, and through that business leave social welfare or actually provide for their families, the communities they live in. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I have bad days, but I have way more good days. So yeah, so that's a bit my timeline in a nutshell. So if anyone has questions or would like to know something more, please ask in the chat. Happy to answer. Yeah, maybe you can press for it. Yeah, and then yeah, also if you are interested, we have next Thursday we have a big demo day. So that's kind of our showcase event where we show what we do with people that are for 4 months in our Forward Incubator. So if you would like to attend, then you are warmly invited. I'm also going to put the link to sign up in the chat. So yes, it would be nice to see some fellow CEMSies there. Yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, please ask. Happy to answer. Yeah, what are your thoughts and worries on those bad days you just described? I think I never had a word to describe what I was feeling, but it is anxiety. So sometimes you just feel really, really anxious, because if you are like, you know, the boss kind of, then at the end of the day, everything is on me. Like, I cannot blame anyone. It's me. If things go well, it's on me. But if things are not going well, it's also on me. So, for example, with this upcoming Demo Day event, where we are prepping now all the entrepreneurs, and we need to invite the relevant people, we need to invite investors. And so it's just a lot, and it's not very linear. And I actually like to work in a more linear way, but in my work, I need to work with a lot of different things at the same time. So there's just a lot of pressure. And, if you are responsible to pay people's salary, it also just, that weighs on you. And we are not for profits, but that does not mean that money plays less of a role. Like you just need to have enough money on the bank account to make everything happen. So sometimes that's a lot of pressure, and I would just like to chill a bit, but yeah, you cannot relax. So you need to always be on, and that's tiring.
And how did you cope with it? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Did you find a way
I drink lots of coffee, so I think I have a slight coffee addiction. I think what I learned is, instead of obsessing about things, just tackling them, just tackle them. So sometimes if I wake up on a Saturday morning and I actually say, okay, I don't want to work in the weekend, but if I have something on my mind, I just do it, instead of thinking about it the entire weekend. So I just try to be very proactive in dealing with issues. And if, I think the Queen said that with problems, just don't deal with them. Either they become so big that they will explode and then you have to do it, or they go away. But I am the exact opposite. If I see that things are not going well, or even just the slightest gut feeling, I just address it. And that's super helpful, especially now with COVID. Everyone sits at home. Sometimes in team meetings, people interpret things negatively, even though they're not even meant like that. So I just constantly proactively reach out and try to align people and ask people to talk to me. And I think that's super helpful. Thanks for the follow-up, Maaike. Thanks.
Nice. We have two more questions from the chat. First, maybe to start off with that, from Zoe. How did you start with the incubator? And I think that's an interesting story anyways, right? Because that was not the most conventional path that you took. So what were your first steps there?
Yeah, so the very, very beginning was that we actually thought about, it would be super nice to start an investment fund for students. And instead of investing in any type of business, we would like to invest in refugee-owned businesses. And then when we did some market research and saw a bit what was going on, we saw, okay, there are not that many innovative businesses. And then we got the idea, why don't we help to start, nice, innovative refugee-owned businesses? So that was kind of the thought process. And then how we did it, we just had some students that we invited for one day to come to the university in Amsterdam, and some refugees that we found through partner organizations. So we're just reaching out, just writing an email asking. And then that first day was really a nice success with around 20 students and 7 refugees just working for one day on their business ideas. And then from there, we just started to do more and more. So we did a crowdfunding campaign, and we raised €5,000. And then we organized a startup weekend for 3 days. And also there, we then started to get business coaches in, also just from our network, asking people. Philips was really helpful in the beginning. They said, okay, you can, talk to some of these employees. They're interested in these areas. And then we started to write formal fund applications. So we are a stichting, so foundation. So we need to continuously raise money. And then once we got the first €80,000 together, we started our first 4-month program. And that is now 3 years ago. And at the moment we have a budget of $500,000 per year. So it takes a lot of different fund proposals to get that together. And we also have some corporate sponsorships and some municipalities in the Netherlands that support us. But all these things take time. If you go into public sector, it becomes very slow. So I really like to actually work with corporates, because it's a bit faster than the public sector.
Mm-hmm. And just take one step after another, right?
Yeah. Like, and I think actually that really helped us that we started this right out of university. I don't know if now that I graduated for 3 years that I would now start this. I don't think so. But if you started right out of uni, you don't really, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you don't have any responsibilities, you don't know the comfort of a corporate. We didn't have an office for the first 2 years, and it's just normal, you're just like a little leech hanging on to different businesses and using their offices, and it's fine. Like you don't know anything else. So that's really nice.
Nice. Taking up the question from Jan. So what type of businesses do you help kickstart? Is there anything in particular, or is it more broadly?
Yeah, so we are completely sector agnostic, which means that we do not work with specific sectors because we are so focused on the target group, which is people with refugee background. So we have incubated so far from not that innovative catering businesses and restaurants to really scalable tech platforms that now also raised venture capital money of $500,000, which is the biggest investment we attracted so far. So it really goes all over the place. That makes the work sometimes really tough because, one size does definitely not fit all. So you need to have very different programs and methodologies for the different types of businesses. But I also feel it makes the entire community way nicer. If we would say, okay, we only focus on highly innovative, scalable tech businesses, then you only attract a special profile. But I think it's also nice to help people that are 60 years old and that never really wrote an email in their life to help them to run their own business. So I love the diversity. You're on mute, Owen.
Oh, thank you for that. Cool. We have 2 more questions, so I try to sort of steer them a bit or put them in a pot, so to say. Maybe if we talk about like how you fund yourself and how you're funded, and sort of what you also take out of these businesses, we can sort of tie those 2 questions together. So first of all, how are you funded? And second of all, how often do you raise funds?
So we are continuously raising funds. So every opportunity that we see. So for example, last month I saw something from actually the European Investment Bank that they were giving away grants. So then we just write a fund application for them. So we're doing it on a continuous basis. It's it's never that you stop. So even if you have a certain budget, but you could raise more, you can raise more. So that's actually nice. Of course, that is also almost 1 FTE only does fundraising. And then the other question, if we own equity in incubated businesses, no, we don't do that because I think it's really nice to leave the complete ownership in someone's hands. Of course, we love it if people are for-profit businesses and they raise external capital and then they need to give away some equity. But what we do is we take a revenue commission of 2%. So if an entrepreneur makes more than 100,000 euros in revenues per year, they give us 2% revenue commission, so 2,000 euros, and that we put in a pot of money that we then give in little micro grants to new cohorts of starting businesses. So how traditional VCs are organized and also incubators, right? It's really this gambling that one startup takes off and then that startup kind of finances everything. We do not play such bets. And also we are now 3 years in, so usually it takes around 10 years for one startup to get really big. So at the moment we do it with a revenue commission.
Okay. Talking about the future and about the perspective of 10 years, that's also sort of taking up the point from Lucas here. So your career growth and your potential next steps, where do you see those?
I really don't have 5-year goals and plans. I think that is kind of healthy in my case because I don't put too much pressure on myself. So to be very honest, in 5 years, I would like to have a baby. So yeah, that's the, if I think about it, right, in 5 years I would be 32. Yes, I would like to have a baby then, and of course be financially also capable to take care of that child, and that it doesn't need to go with me on my bike everywhere. So that is the goal. But I think if I just keep waking up every day, showing up, trying to do the best I can, I will get there. And of course, the goal with Forward Incubator is to internationalize and especially establish some presence in the Middle East. I think Istanbul is super interesting because there live around almost 3 million Syrians in Istanbul alone. I mean, this is not an official figure, but that's kind of, a very close estimate. So we want to grow and expand internationally in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, like international expansion as a keyword. I mean, that's sort of also something that you're doing right now, right? You're sort of moving away from Amsterdam and Netherlands based to more digital and global activities, actually also due to COVID. Can you quickly sort of walk us through that?
Yeah, so actually COVID was really an enabler of scale also at Forward, because we started to develop a digital entrepreneurship program, which is 10 weeks of online training with regards to business and entrepreneurship skills. And at the moment we have 130 people in that program, of which 70 are international, mostly from within the MENA region. And then in our core incubator at the moment, we need to take in at least 85% that are Dutch because of funding reasons. But yeah, in the future, we would really like to offer our core incubator also to people outside of the Netherlands. So that's why at the moment we are really focused on international fundraising. So for example, I talked previously about the European Investment Bank. So this type of money we could then use to figure out our international expansion, because we just need a bit of cash to get that off the ground internationally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Any other questions from the audience or any sort of topics that you want to further dig in?
Yeah, I mean, there was one, like, what was the hardest part so far on your journey at Forward Incubator? I think in the beginning, it was really, really tough to be the only one that does something, like, that is not the traditional path, like either going into like a consultancy or like Procter & Gamble. What I saw everyone doing around me, I was not doing that. So sometimes you feel a bit left out. And also, of course, like financially in the beginning, not having a salary and just giving it your all, but not really being financially stable. That was tough. So I was really lucky that my parents supported me for the first 6 months. And now 3 years in, like, for example, this morning I had like a coffee. I went for a walk with a friend who actually also did CEMS. And he did his 2 years at McKinsey, and now he stopped and he started his own vegan cheese company. And now, now we really understand each other and the struggles, but also the good things, that we can go in the morning for coffee together, right? We both don't have a boss that tells us you cannot do that. So it was really nice to just talk to him, and also seeing him being way more, I don't know, just a bit freer in his head and in his thoughts. So yeah, I mean, he said he was really positive about his 2 years at McKinsey, but he just said it was time for him to leave, and do something. So yeah, that was the hardest in the beginning, to just, you feel alone. And I sometimes still feel alone, because there is not really someone that does exactly what I do. So this feeling of loneliness and that no one can really relate to what you're doing is sometimes hard.
Mm-hmm. And but still, I mean, also internally in your company, your co-founder, talking quickly about him, he's also CEMSie, right?
Yes. So he's the dark sheep of the CEMS community, because he never graduated because he didn't get his language certificate. No, he didn't do the internship because we started Forward Incubator, and I did my internship already the summer before. So I was smart, and he didn't do that because he wrote his thesis over summer, so he actually never graduated. But yeah, Diederik, of course, you know, like he's really my rock partner. He's my partner in crime, and I also, if I see entrepreneurs that do things on their own, I am just flabbergasted. For me, it is so important to have your partner and your like the co-founder that you can trust in, because at the end of the day, your employees, you know, I love my team and they're all really hardworking, but it's not their business. So there's just a bit less equity from the heart and from, you know, just in the business. So yeah, it's just different. So I'm very happy to have Diederik.
Mm-hmm. How did you actually go about finding each other? Because from my talks with aspiring entrepreneurs, that's one of the main difficulties, really, to find a co-founder and a person you can work with and be dedicated, share the same values and passions. How did you go about that?
So we met doing CEMS together, but so right in Rotterdam, but he lived already in Amsterdam. So I never really saw a lot of him. I don't, like, if you live in the Netherlands, you know, like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, like it's very close. It's like 40 minutes by train, but you either love Amsterdam or you love Rotterdam. I love both. But so he was not really active in class, and he was always built in the clouds. But then we once started to talk, and also he had the original idea about Refugees Forward. We started to talk, and I was just like, okay, this guy is so smart, and we are so complementary. Like, he's super analytical and quiet, and you know, he has also 5 degrees because he also did like a bachelor's in international relations and all of that. So he's very intellectual and analytical, and we are just super complementary. So I'm more fiery and extrovert, so that we got along well from the start. And we had just this, I think the most important is, if you look for a co-founder, is that the trust, and that they are not life draining, you know, so that you leave the meeting, you're like super excited. And we had that from the very start. So yeah, I mean, we fight also, of course, I think, but I don't think that's negative, right? Like, you can just tell each other what you don't like about how you deal in certain situations. So we are super honest, and it
depends on how you fight, whether it's constructive or not, actually. Yeah, but that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you work for 3 years every day together, you also have sometimes unconstructive fights, because you just, you know, you're just tired of seeing that same face every day, but you know, you love what you do together. So yeah, I would say that the trust in like trusting the other person and not checking on them is the most important.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 more questions. First of all, from Maaike, how do you make sure that you really have a work-life balance? Like, how do you deal with that, especially if you're so flexible? I mean, I understand the point. If you have a coffee with a friend in the morning, then how do you make sure that you don't work until 3 a.m. to sort of make up for that?
Well, actually, that friend is now a coach also at Forward Incubator, so I always get something out of everything. But I see everything in a more holistic way, because if I drink that coach with a friend and he becomes, you know, a coach at Forward Incubator, helping someone, then that also energizes me for the entire day, and then I'm way more productive. So I think, and I also tell that to the people in my team, right? Like, take an afternoon off, take Friday off. If you come back with way more energy on a Monday, then that's great. I think last week I had a really tough week, so I worked twice until 11 or something, and all the other days also until 8 or 9. But that's, yeah, I mean, it just happens sometimes, but it's then just important that you do it with passion still. Like, if I sit there at night, you know, doing slides, I just listen to podcasts and I drink a glass of red wine and I just do it, and then it's okay. So I try to not feel guilty about not having the best work-life balance, but I'm 27, I do what I can, and some days are better than others, but I try not to be too tough on myself.
Nice. Great. we have two more questions, also very interesting topic that we are touching upon now. So first, about the CEMS program generally, like, since you also shared that experience that it's really focused on corporate and consulting, and so what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there should be more emphasis on entrepreneurship too?
Yeah, and not even entrepreneurship, but just different careers, you know, like you can work for an NGO, or you can work for a small SME and be happy. Like they're just different, like everyone has a different priority list. And I think that is something I see a lot with students. You guys have a lot of priorities. I say you guys, but I know there's some alumni, but if you're currently a student, but you have so many different priorities, and you think your first job needs to satisfy all of these, but that will never happen. Like, you're not going to have a first job that gives you a great salary, really purpose in what you're doing, plus you live in a cool city where all of your friends are. Like, it's not going to happen. So it's very important to kind of pick the number one priority and then focus on that. So when I did the Société Générale, which is like the biggest French bank, they had like internal consultants, and I was like, they had 5 different rounds already, and it was super complicated, and then you have to go to Paris, and they would only pay half of your travel. And I thought, okay, this is also not really nice to give access to all. So already I felt, okay, my values are here not really at home, you know. And then everyone was also very competitive, and I felt like, okay, I don't want to work in such an environment. But you think you need to be very honest what you want. And I think in terms of what CEMS could do is just, have more of these talks like this. I just hope that I can give some people the feeling that, you know, you can do whatever you want with your life. There is not one path that makes everyone happy. Like, you need to go your own path, and it's sometimes uncomfortable, but at least you are on your own path. But yeah, so more talks, more honest talks with alumni, and of course also in the curriculum, just have diverse classes. But I think that's actually great about CEMS, right? Because you can pick what you want to do. So I think CEMS is actually a great master's, like, because even I think it's tough to, once you graduate, to not go into corporate, but then 1-2 years later, I see a lot of my friends that they really fall on their feet and start to understand what makes them happy, and then they pursue that more actively.
Taking up the point from Beatrice there as well, when did you personally really make that decision? I mean, you said just before that you also looked into Société Générale, you went through the interview process at McKinsey. So when did it really become clear to you that that was not the path you wanted to follow?
Yeah, so there was one moment where, so first when we started, back then it was called Refugees Forward, not Forward Incubator. So first I thought about it like, okay, I'm going to work here for 6 months and just give it my all and see how far we can get. So I saw it really as a one-time thing, that we would do this program once and just see how it is and learn a lot. And then one time I was biking through like Santolo Park, which is like the biggest park in Amsterdam, and the sun was shining, and I was just thinking like, okay, why would I stop doing this? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why would I leave the people, that I love to work with? Why would I leave this impact that I create every day? Why would I do all of that just to, go to Berlin potentially, or to Paris to do, I don't know. I feel also that in CEMS, there is this value of always being on the move and always doing the most international thing and most exotic, and go to Singapore and work for, I don't know. And I just thought like, okay, actually, I'm just happy where I am right now. And then, I will never forget that bike ride, because after that bike ride, I called my then boyfriend, who's now my ex-boyfriend, and I called him and I said, okay, I actually want to stay in Amsterdam. I don't want to come to Berlin. And then that was the beginning of the end of that relationship. So, yeah. And, back then I questioned, like, did I do the right, did I take the right decision? A lot. And it was really tough. And I was crying a lot, because I was like, shit, now I sit here in Amsterdam and what did I do with my life? But now I know it was the right decision. But yeah, it's just organically happened. So I also, if I could give one advice to people, is just be in touch with your internal voice. And I think a lot of people are not honest to themselves, and that's the biggest problem. If you're honest to yourself, you know what makes you happy, and then just do more of that, and do less of what you think externally gives you recognition.
Mm-hmm. That self-awareness, basically, it's also something that is really hard to master. So yeah, very good points. Interesting. One quite practical question also from Rito here. When starting out, how did you really activate that network that you mentioned was so valuable? How did you go about that? Who did you call? How did you choose which people to contact, and how could they help you?
Yeah, so this is actually really nice, right? Because my first email went to the program manager in Rotterdam to put me in touch with fellow CEMSies that actually started their own business. And for example, one of these guys was Niels van Deuren. Like in the Netherlands, people know him. He's the founder of Housing Anywhere. They recently raised, like, I don't know, 25 million or something. So that was quite, like high profile guy. And then if you have one high profile guy like that, then he can reach out to his network. And also, if you just deliver, like what we are doing, right? We help people with refugee background start their own business. It has also something as like a challenge in itself, So a lot of very successful, a bit older people that work as coaches or experts at Forward, they love this challenge. So we have, for example, one coach. He's Ernst Peter, also like old school Dutch guy, and he also very successful entrepreneur, and he actually co-founded the business with the entrepreneur that he coached through Forward. So it's a Sudanese guy called Mohammed, and they work on solar irrigation for poor farmers in Sudan. But it's for profit, and they now raised 110,000 euros together, and they are now at the moment in Khartoum in Sudan, and they have a farm, and they are like installing the first solar irrigation system. So this, and then if you have such a success story from this Ernst Peter, you go through his network and say, hey, you can also come and have this experience. Of course, we don't promise anything, but the people are generally very interested in what we do. I mean, you have always some people that are a bit critical, but it was very easy to get to a good coach network in hindsight. But you just need to put yourself out there, like reach out to people on LinkedIn and be super specific what you want from them. Like sometimes I receive emails from students, they are so long, and they just want to ask me, would you like to come on the podcast on Thursday? And I'm like, yes, you can just say it in one sentence. I don't know. I feel like people are very uncomfortable reaching out, but I actually, if someone reaches out to me, I really always try to help or put them in touch. So yeah, most people like to be contacted. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. You need to be active. Like no one will come to you, so you need to do it, but then feel comfortable in doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very hands-on. Just reach out and be specific about how people can help you. So that's a really good point.
Always say, this is how you can help me, like super specific. This is what I'm looking, or even if you see on LinkedIn someone doing the dream job that you would like to have, like just write to them like, hey, I'm really impressed by the job. I would love to do something like this. And would you have maybe once, like half an hour to just talk? And you would be surprised how many people are open to do these kind of things.
One other specific recommendation that you could give, especially when it comes to incubators and VCs, is there any resource that you relied on, like a book or a website or whatever, to sort of explain a bit what that is all about?
Yeah, so there is this Holy Grail book called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. I don't know if you know it, but that is kind of a staple. I think this is just something, if you want to do something in the area of entrepreneurship, read this, because it's really very different to how corporates are run. So it's very lean, right? So you experiment, you get feedback, and you improve your product, and you experiment again, you go out of the building. Like, you don't sit for 1 year in a room trying to build a product that no one wants. So the Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and then one of the first, I'm going to put the link in the chat, one of the first incubators in the world, of course, from the US, YGAP, and they have a lot of material accessible. No, not YGAP, Y Combinator, sorry. YGAP is the social one. Y Combinator. They have a lot of content accessible for all for free, and also even contracts. So if you have a co-founder, no, sorry, this is the wrong one. Y Combinator. Yeah, thank you for the one that said the correct one. So that one is great. Then I don't know. I actually don't read that much business literature. I like to read different things at night. But what else could I? Yeah, Simon Sinek has like starting with the why. I think that is really powerful in how you communicate, that you always start with why you're doing what you're doing and not what you're doing or how you're doing it, but you start why. Starting with the why, Simon Sinek's also a really good book. And then just, I don't know, what always fascinates me is to read biographies. So like Coco Chanel, of course, there's criticism about her because she collaborated with the Germans in the Second World War, but like these type of profiles, or like the founder of Estée Lauder, which is a woman. I think biographies are really interesting because you kind of see an entire life and you see where they went wrong. So I really like to read biographies about people that are mavericks in their own field.
Good, thanks. That's also some book tips, and yeah, especially from Eric Ries, the Lean Startup, definitely an all-time classic. So judging from the feedback from Lucas in particular here, with super nice feedback on what you're talking about, people would love to hear you talk for some more, but I think we slowly need to wrap it up. Maybe let's take up the questions from Tim to sort of really wrap it up. He asked, like, if you feel lonely sometimes, couldn't that be alleviated by starting off not just with one single person, but more in a bigger team and with a group of friends co-founding a business?
Yeah. So yeah, so that's what we did in the very beginning. We were with 3. So Diederik, David, and I. Diederik and David, both Dutch guys. David, he left. He now is one of a co-founder in a insurance tech in Kenya, because he just wanted to see the world. He was Dutch born and raised, so he left. And then of course, like we had from the start, we had interns, and that helps, to have this team aspect. That's really helpful for sure to not feel lonely. But it's very tricky. If you look at Forward Incubator, like we have very high turnover of people. I'm aware of that, but it also just comes from, we are looking for very specific profiles. So we are looking for people with a big heart, but that are also smart and that love business. And to find that combination is not that easy. Like I get a lot of CVs of people asking for a job that come from a humanitarian sector, but that's not the profile that we need. We need people with good business acumen, because our mission is to empower people to start their own business. So yeah, we just need people with good business acumen, and it's not so easy to find the combination of both.
I hear CEMSies are quite good candidates, so maybe that's the place to look for, right?
Yeah, actually, if you are looking at the moment for an internship, you can always reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or our website, forwardincubator.com. You find your way to send your CV, because we had a lot of CEMS interns also in the past. But then the CEMS interns, often they love the internship and they are really great, but then they leave to do corporate job. But which is also, of course, fine. But yeah, it's nice.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alvin and Melissa, for organizing everything. That's really nice.
Yeah, I think it was really great talking to you and sharing all these interesting hands-on insights. Thank you very, very much for that. Really great feedback also that we received here on the chat. I think the people could really benefit from what you said, what we spoke about. So really inspiring, cool. Thanks again. Amazing. And yeah, I think now to really wrap up, we're left with 2 announcements, right, Melissa? First of all, yeah, if you participated now and really enjoyed the talk, then tomorrow there's another talk that you could tune in. I think we have Nikolai Nielsen here, and he holds a webinar on the premises of ambition and how to measure return. So also quite an interesting topic. He is a CEMS alumni from 2011 and now works as an associate partner at McKinsey. So yeah, if you tune in, feel free to check out the website and register for that event. And then next on, CEMS entrepreneurs, since entrepreneurship is, and CEMS is also a topic that we talked upon quite a bit now in this discussion with Laura. CEMS Entrepreneurs is an initiative that we actually are really accelerating now, and we want to provide a network for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs and founders. So if you're interested in the topic, then also hit us up on our website, whatever. We organize a lot of events at the moment, from pitching contests over to skill seminars and workshops. So check that out as well. I can really encourage it. And also, if you want to stay tuned, then you can sign up to our newsletter where you get most of the relevant information on time. And yeah, with that, and yeah, tune in on that as well. Thank you very much to everyone for joining, and I hope you really took the most out of this session.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Laura. Thank you so much, Alvin. We really appreciate your time. And I look forward to seeing what you do with Forward Incubator. And,
thank you so much.
Hope to see you expand
to
Turkey as well. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right,
Be strong.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.